So our previous lecture introduces to the idea of keeping track of time with calendars. And we said one of the problems is if you keep track of a calendar using the moon, each cycle of the moon's phases is 29.5 days. So 12 months does not match how long it takes the Earth to go around the sun. 13 months is too long. And so that didn't seem to work real well because the actual time it takes Earth to go around the sun is 365 and about a quarter days. And so sidereal year, the actual time it takes to go around is slightly more than 365 and a quarter, but because of precession, we talked about precession earlier, because of precession, the seasons don't repeat at the same time that the Earth goes around the sun, because as it goes around the sun, it changes the direction of the tilt, which changes when the sun is at the equinoxes or the solstices. So the seasons repeat every 365.24 days. So every 365 days, 5 hours, and almost 49 minutes. And so a calendar that keeps track of the seasons is not going to be matching up with the calendar that keeps track of the moon. So how do we reconcile this? Well, we have several options. The Islamic calendar just simply completely ignores the fact that the moons don't fit in with the seasons. That's not considered important. And so the Islamic calendar just looks at the moon and says, okay, we're going to start a month when you first see the moon after it's lined up with the sun. So the first visible sighting of the moon, that starts the month, and we go for 12 months, and then we start a new year. And that means that if you have like holy days or a holy month or something like Ramadan, then sometimes it's going to be in the summer, and then eventually it's going to be in the spring, and then eventually it's going to be in the winter, and then eventually it's going to be in the fall. So it moves around the seasons because the calendar year is slightly shorter than the length of the seasonal year. If that's what's important to you, that's fine. Okay. The Jewish calendar does something a little bit different. It's actually related to the Babylonian calendar, and that was they still do 12 lunar months. Well, that, as we said, that does not fit the number of days that it takes for the seasons to repeat. And so what they do is the Jewish calendar sticks an extra month in. So some years it's 12 months, and some years it's 13 months. And the extra month is inserted sort of midway through, but it's inserted so that the year does not start too early. So the new year would start after the autumnal equinox, and so if you realize that's going to happen too early, then what you do is stick an extra month into the calendar, and so that reconciles it. So it's either 12-month or 13-month. The problem is this extra month stuck in doesn't follow a really nice, neat pattern. And so someone has to work through a lot of mathematics to calculate which years it's in there and which years it's not in there. An alternative way of doing it is what the Romans did, and that is they just decoupled the months from the moon's phases. And you notice that our calendar that we're using today does not actually follow the moon's phases. They shifts. When we talk about lunar phases, you notice that it gradually shifted. The phases weren't always at the same time of each month. So the calendar here that's commonly used throughout most of the world for 2020, we kind of start the year with the moon almost in sync, so middle of the month we get a full moon. This is not like the Jewish calendar or the Islamic calendar. They start with the sighting of the moon, so the middle of the month is always a full moon. And there's certain holidays like, for example, Passover is in the middle of the Jewish month, and so that is always going to be around a full moon. And so that's just one of these things that's going to happen with a lunar calendar. The common civil calendar that most of the world uses, though, the length of the month does not match the cycle of the moon's phases, and so the moon's phases gradually cycle through the month. The calendar that we use really goes back to the Romans, and they originally had a 10-month calendar. They started the calendar in March near the vernal equinox, and so the calendar went for 10 months. Quintus literally means 5. Fifth month, sextus is 6 months. Septem means 7. Remember, like an octagon or an octopus is 8. So that's the 8th month. Novum means 9. Decem means 10. So December was the 10th month. Now, that doesn't in any way match the seasons, but the 10th month always ended up at a really cold time of the year. And the early Roman city-state was purely agrarian in nature. Farmers didn't do much in the winter until it was time to harvest, until it was time to plant crops again. And so they just did not even keep track of time until it was close to the vernal equinox, and they started keeping time again for another few months, another 10 months. Now, eventually, they decided that's not the way to do it, and so what they did was they added 2 more months, January and February. And for a long time, they continued starting the year in March. Now, the problem for the Romans was that even numbers like 30 were considered unlucky. Now, in order for this calendar to match the moon's phases, then it would have to alternate 29 and 30 days. So instead, they made it 31 and 29. So March was 31, April was 29, May 31, June 29, and so forth. And so it cycled through all the phases here like this, or through all the months like this. Now, the problem with that way of doing it is that's only 360 days. That's not really long enough to actually match the seasons. So what the Romans did was they would stick extra days into the 12th month. 12th was an unlucky number, so unlucky month, and so February got the short end of the stick and the extra days were stuck in. Okay, how many extra days? Enough days so that the year started at the equinox again. And the average Roman couldn't figure that out, so they had sky priests that kept track of that. Now, they did this at the Ides of February, so they actually did this really weird. They did February 1 to 15, and then they stopped doing February, stuck extra days in, 5 or 6 days, then they went back and finished February 16 to 31. Now, this is where it got kind of odd. When Rome was a republic, they voted to elect new people into office, and the sky priests did not like the people that were currently in office, then they would say, well, we only need 1 extra day this year, and that way we get to the election earlier. And then it's like we do the extra day, so we do February 1 to 15, then an extra day, and then they say, well, February is really unlucky, let's just skip the rest of February and have the election right now. And so they'd have an election, and the new year would start. Now, if they really liked the person in office, then they would stick, like a bunch of days in there and then go back and finish February. This really became a major issue when Julius Caesar was emperor of Rome. And he realized that the calendar was so messed up, they had to put hundreds of days into February in order to shift the calendar back where it's supposed to be. And so he said, we need to fix this. This is not how we're going to have a calendar that works right. So he implements what's known as the Julian calendar. Now, if you remember Julius Caesar and Cleopatra, he was familiar with what the calendar was in Egypt. Now, he didn't know exactly what the sky priests were doing, but he knew it was 365 days, and an extra day every 4 years. So what he did was he says we're gonna go 31-30, 31-30. I know 30 is unlucky. The Romans deal with it. 31-30, 31-30, 31-30, 31-30, all the way down to February. But that if that was 30, that would be 366 days. That's too long. So make February 29, and that would be 365 days. And so every 4 years, stick an extra day into February. Make it 30 days instead of 29. In his honor, they took the 5th month and they renamed the 5th month Julius's month. Okay. Well, after a number of years, there's a new emperor, Augustus Caesar. And Augustus is kind of irritated that Julius gets a month named after him. So they said, oh, we'll fix that. We're going to name the next month Augustus's month. Okay, well, that didn't actually make him happy because it was too short. It was shorter than Julius's month. So they said, oh, well, we're going to move a day from February, because we always mess with February, into that month, make it 31 days. But then we have 30, then what we have is we've got too many of 31-day months in a row. We have 3 in a row. So what we're going to do is we are now going to move a day from September to October and a day from November to December. And then February is going to be 28 days, and then every 4 years you add an extra day into February. Well, does this sound familiar? Well, yeah, this sounds very much like the calendar that we've been using ever since. And even though they changed it a little bit to make Augustus happy, this is still referred to as the Julian calendar. And it worked just fine for a very long time, except that it's not exactly right, because this is not precisely right, because it means that we have 365 days, 365 days, 365 days, 366 days. That means it averages exactly 365.25, but the seasons are closer to 365.24. So that means if you wait long enough, this gradually becomes off a little bit. And that's where we'll pick up with our next lecture.